It's in Deuteronomy, and it's chapter 17. This is really remarkable because this is like 400 years before Israel ever even has the king. But Moses tells them, and it's really prophetic. I'll just read it real quick, or parts of it. He says, the king, if you ask for a king, he must not acquire many horses. This is what he's telling them to do. And he must not cause the people to return to Egypt to get more horses. And he says, he shall not have many wives for himself, lest he turns his heart away, nor shall he acquire for himself excessive gold and silver. And when he sits on the throne, this is a cool requirement that they had for kings, he shall write for himself a copy of God's word, the law, and it must be approved by the priest. The priests have to go over and make sure it looks right. And it shall be with him, and he shall read it all the days of his life, that he may learn to fear the Lord his God by keeping all of his word and his statutes and do them, and that his heart may not be lifted above his brothers, they may not turn from the commandment to the right or to the left, so that he may continue in the kingdom long, he and his children. A lot of stuff, but what's so cool about it is how prophetic that is, because this is like 480 years before King Solomon. If you know who King Solomon was, he's like the richest, wealthiest king. And King Solomon, he started out really good, and God gave him great wisdom, and he really followed after God. But then he started to do all these things that he told him not to do. He acquired many horses. Matter of fact, he married a woman. He said not to acquire many wives. He had 700 wives and like concubines, right? And one of his wives were from Egypt, and they say the reason why he got her, why he did it, was for political reasons and to basically build his military might, probably to get those horses that God told him not to acquire too. And it says, but in his older age, you'll find out that Solomon begins to turn away from God because of the wives that he had, that God told him not to get, and he starts worshiping other gods. The bad thing about this is Solomon. And in Ecclesiastes, it's really cool because it tells that he says that all these things that he got, he acquired, was like vanity and vexation of spirit. Basically, it was all trouble for him. See, God always knows what's best for us, but we think we want what we want. It ends up causing trouble for him. And that's exactly what it does for Solomon. And what's a great tragedy, in addition to that, is at the end, he gets it right, and he gets it right with God, and he gives his life back to the Lord. But the problem is in this last statement that Moses says, he says, so that he may continue long in his kingdom, he and his children. Well, his children didn't get to continue long in the kingdom. The kingdom was divided and all this stuff. And God's word is always true. And we have to realize that what God says is always what's best for us. The plight of men, sometimes we think we know what we want. But then when we end up eating it or getting what we want, it's like bitter to our stomach. And that's exactly what happened with Solomon. He says it's vanity and vexation of spirit. And I just think it's remarkable how God was telling them 480 years long before he ever became king what not to do. He even told him, and that's why I stress so much getting in God's word and reading God's word, because he says that kings were required to make a copy of the word and to read in it daily. And the whole reason they did it is so that their hearts would not be lifted above their brethren, and that they may not turn against the commandment of the Lord. And David said, your word have I hidden in my heart that I might not sin against you. When we get in God's word and we study his word, it helps us and guide us and keeps us from turning away from him. Anyway, that's all I got. Heavenly Father,